Hey guys. Hello, hello.
Woo, we're
Hello.
very excited.
Yeah.
Boaz, we'll just wait for like 3 minutes because people are
Okay.
still trying to log in.
So,
So
Kate, I have a question for you, if I may.
go ahead.
So it looks like there's a couple presenters, or is it just me?
Just
Can you
you,
kind of?
just you, just
Okay,
you.
sounds good. And so, how do you want this thing to start out? Are you going to do an intro and then lead
Yeah,
into this? Is
yeah.
that what you want to do? Okay,
Just only you, the speaker.
sounds good.
Yep. And Boaz, I'm going to be hosting today. Nice to meet you,
Great.
by the way.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
Yeah, likewise. So it's Boaz Ashkenazy, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Great.
Good job.
Yeah,
Not easy.
very good. Yeah, I took a look at your podcast earlier. Just wanted to make sure I got it correct.
Yeah. Awesome. And timing-wise, you guys want to do like 45 minutes and 15 for questions?
Yeah, we can do that. Figure out
You guys usually have like a little Q&A period? Yeah.
Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
One of you recognize.
Hi everyone. Dan, can you have everyone we have a global audience right now?
You want to turn the music down a little bit? She could have gotten one of the two of my
I like the music though.
nails down a little
I
bit
think life
lower.
should just be
So
living
I
with
made
music.
that myself. So I like a little bit lower.
Let's see who
I'm
is
Is that
that?
Diana?
This Diana, I think, yeah. Yes, if you don't mind muting your microphone as you join in, super excited. We will start in 1 minute. I know people are trying to join in. I saw one has been trying to join Zoom for 20 minutes. I'm not sure what country is that, but we're super, super stoked. We have Miko here all the way from Malta. I know it's 2 a.m. his time.
Oh my gosh. Thank
Yeah.
you, Miko.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Excellent.
Morning.
All right. Yeah, no, we're excited. This is going to be the future of work. We all need to know this.
Yes.
If you're a leader, business, whatever it is. So I've heard Boaz speak, so I'm excited for today. But put in the chat where you're from. I know we have people here that are requesting to come in, so we will accept them and then get started shortly. You know, people like to come on the dot to a masterclass. So, but thank you everyone for your patience.
Awesome.
Look at that, some familiar faces out there. Hey, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
All right. I think we can start. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Really super excited to see everyone from all over the world. So very excited for our 6th masterclass of Global AI Council. Again, our mantra is AI for good, free education for all. Truly, truly honored to see all of you guys. My name is Kate Hancock, the founder of Global AI Council. So today our host is Paul Tachi, who's the founder of Tachi Bots. That's what I've heard about bots in 2020. So Paul, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Tachi. I'm a businessman out of Silicon Valley, and I'm honored to be your host for today's masterclass. We have a packed agenda ahead, so let's dive right in. But before we begin, let's hear a few opening thoughts from our esteemed colleague Miko. Miko, over to you.
Thank you, and good morning. Well, good morning from Malta. It's 2 a.m. over here, so a bit early for me. I'm actually really excited to about the topic since it's something that I've been thinking about for a number of years, and can't wait to hear more about it. I think that it's one of the more critical elements when you're talking about AI is the future of work and how we actually prepare for that. And I think that we are starting to get in a point where the businesses are they're not only just like getting into it, but they're also getting to a point where they're playing catch up. But can't wait to hear the today's topic in detail.
Great. Thank you, Miko. Now let's move on to our speaker, Boaz Ashkenazy. As the CEO and co-founder of Simply Augmented, Boaz Ashkenazy is the pioneering force in transforming the workplace of the future through the strategic deployment of AI in business operations. Boaz brings a unique perspective that draws on his experience at Meta, where he played a role in developing internal tools that boost productivity. Previous to Meta, he was the co-founder of a series of emerging tech startups in the design, e-commerce, and remote meeting space. One of the driving forces behind Simply Augmented, Boaz is committed to establishing a premier AI-first solutions provider that empowers businesses to harness generative AI for optimizing their core business workflows. Boaz is also the creator and host of the Shift AI podcast, which is syndicated through GeekWire. Boaz, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, and walk everybody through. It's wonderful to meet everybody, and I'm really excited about this talk today. So if you could enable my screen share, I'll do that, and then we can get started.
I made you a co-host. Let me say, go ahead. There you go.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you. All right. All right. So by now you should see my screen. If I can get a thumbs up, that'd be good. Yeah, love it. All right. So I am Boaz Ashkenazy, and today we're going to talk about the future of work. The title of this talk is Unleashing the Future of Work. A little bit about myself. I am the CEO of Simply Augmented, as was stated. I'm the host of the Shift AI podcast. I always like to share some things about me that not a lot of people know. And I know it's a little hard on Zoom because you can't see how tall I am. But I was a Division II college basketball player at the University of California at Riverside, and I grew up in the Southern California area. And then I was a jock turned nerd in college and got really excited about the internet. Now, when I graduated at that time, I graduated in 1993. There was a lot of action happening in Northern California at that time. And so I moved from Southern to Northern California, and I spent the majority of my 20s, in San Francisco as all of this .com craziness was happening. When it crashed, I got accepted to the University of Washington. So I went from being a Highlander to being a banana slug to being a Husky. And I went to the University of Washington to study. And most of my career after graduating was as a co-founder of startups. As was mentioned, I had a startup that was in the 3D architecture and real estate space. Then I did a startup that was in the e-commerce space, and another one that was in 3D Zoom kind of meeting space during the pandemic. And then Meta came calling, and actually Facebook came calling. The name changed while I was there, but the job there was to work on internal tools for employees. And so the work that I'm doing now at Simply Augmented is really an extension of that. One of the engineers who was a machine learning and an AI engineer from Accenture worked with me at Meta and decided to move over into this new company, along with another engineer from Apple. So the three of us have come together to form this company with really the idea of helping small businesses leverage AI and machine learning in the same way that we did when we were at these bigger companies. So hopefully today, when I talk to you about the ways that we're thinking about it, we're really thinking about this for, in the United States, what we call SMBs. So small to mid-size companies. In my early career, I also spent a lot of time partnering with Microsoft in the early HoloLens days. Before Oculus was sold to Facebook, did a lot of work with them. And then I've done a lot of nonprofit work as well with the Kronos Group. And those who aren't familiar with the Kronos Group, they do a lot of interesting work with developers to set standards for the internet. And it's definitely worth checking out. They're doing a lot of work now in the AI space too, to set standards on the web for AI. So today, I want to talk a little bit briefly talk about the productivity stuff that we did at Meta, why Gen AI for work is even being talked about right now. I mean, there's a lot of hype in the last year, and so I want to kind of clear the air about some of that. And then I want to introduce an idea around AI that's more than just chat, because so much of what we've experienced in the last year is ChatGPT, and there's more to it than that. And I think what's going to be fun today is I'm going to go through some case studies because it's always good to hear, you know, strategy and concept, but it's fun to see actual work. And then I can talk through some of the things with the actual work. So one of the interesting things that I think about is where we're going, you know, right now, and why, you know, we're in this place that we are. And 2 years ago, we weren't really having this conversation because large language models didn't really exist in the way that they do now. And you hear a lot of people say, oh, well, AI and machine learning have been around for a long time, and they have. You know, Amazon and Meta, we were doing a lot of things with AI and machine learning. But large language models that were able to sound like humans just didn't exist before. And the ability now for large language models to deal with unstructured data, which we'll get into deeper in a second, is really new. And I think a lot of the hype is around that. It's just this revolutionary way of understanding unstructured data. And so as we look into the future, there's a lot of things that are going to be happening that I think is going to change the way that we interact with computers. I think that's going to happen when we interact with conversational AI, when we go to websites to book tickets to airlines, when we go and deal with government affairs and local governments, and to the content that we see in the movies and otherwise. I think Gen AI this last year was very hyped, but in the future, it's going to be invisible, and it's going to be in a lot of tools and everything that we use. For the sake of talking about this today, I want to explain where Simply Augmented sits within this, because I think that's helpful to understand, especially within the small to medium-sized business category. So when you think about the stack of solutions, at the very, very bottom, and I'm sure a lot of people have read this in the news, GPUs are very, very scarce. The hardware to run AI is very scarce. On top of that lives Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS and GCP. Those are the cloud platforms. From the cloud platforms, you can select the models. And OpenAI is the most popular, but now there's Anthropic's Claude and there's Meta's Llama 2. There's all these large language models that exist that sit on top of the cloud platforms. And then you have the open source models that you can take and do with them what you want. And then you have applications. So applications would be ChatGPT, Jasper, all the kind of video applications, audio applications. All of those are using existing foundational models. So as you think about this, it really is a stack. They all build on top of each other. Simply Augmented lives in the solution space. We help companies take existing applications and we wire them up, and then we manage those services and we run those services within business. So we're really solution providers. So as I show you more of this stuff, I'm really obsessed with businesses' problems, and then I use existing tools to help solve those problems. So one of the big ideas, there's three big ideas I want to carry across today. One of them is leverage your people. And you know, when I think about this idea, I really approach AI from a human-centered way. And what that means for me is that small teams can do bigger things. I know there's a lot of fear in the media around people losing their jobs. And I think jobs will be lost, but I think those are going to shift over to different kinds of jobs. But I think the people that take advantage of these tools, I really think about them as power tools, are going to be able to do more with what they have in their tool chest. And so if you think about it, if you're a construction worker and you're using a screwdriver, how much more efficient are you with a screw gun? I mean, you just are. And so that's how I want everyone to think about this. Like, the humans are super valuable. We'll talk about this more. They're just more powerful with these tools. And so one of the things I like to think about for me, and I'll kind of bring it and make it personal, is what can I do with these tools that I couldn't do before? And I like to think about getting into the genius zone. That's what I call it. You know, all the mundane things that I do as a business owner, if I can get the computer to do 80% of those, I can live in this place that's much more strategic and creative. And actually, my business, the enterprise value of my business, is better off when I'm there. And so that's how I'd like everyone to think about it. Can we get, like, for me, I'll give you an example. I sit in a lot of meetings every day. I write a lot of emails, and I have tools that help me coordinate my meetings. I have tools that help me summarize the meeting so I don't have to type them out by hand all the time. And then I have tools that start an email for me and draft them so that I can send them out more quickly. Those are all examples of things that slow me down, suck my energy, and keep me from being in the genius zone. And so I want to give you guys a few things, like leave you with a few things before we dive into the workflows of tools that I use that I think are super useful and are basically, basically free or low cost. One of them is Ready to Send. Ready to Send is a tool that sits next to your Gmail or your Outlook, and it'll generate, using foundational models, it'll generate emails for you. They live in your draft, so they're not just getting sent out automatically, but they do a really great job of getting you like 80% of the way there. You tweak them, and then you can send them off. The other one I use, which has been around for a while, I mean, it's not necessarily an AI tool. I just think it's massively useful, and it allows me to get into my genius zone, and that's Calendly. So if anybody uses calendar tools, being able to send off a link and have somebody take their own agency and set up a calendar is just amazing. And then one of the tools that I recently came across that I just think is amazing, this is a very crowded space, is Fathom Video. It's fathom.video. And it's very similar to read.ai or Otter or some of these other tools where you can take meeting notes. It just does a really, really good job of meeting summary. I'm just shocked and amazed at what it does. And the free version is amazing. So I would take advantage of this. If you guys aren't using a tool to summarize your Zoom meetings, you should absolutely do it. It's going to save you a ton of time. And then the other one, and I tell everybody this, is pay the $20 and use ChatGPT Pro. I mean, you can use the free version, but the pro version is so much better. And, I would say that for the $20, because the cost of GPT-4 is so much more than GPT 3.5 Turbo, generally speaking, you're getting so much value for that. And I just think it's really worth it. The other thing that I think is amazing out there right now is the free training. And when yesterday, I was talking to a bunch of University of California students and graduates, and they were asking me, what should I learn? I'm not technical. What should I learn? And so I think that everybody should have a basic understanding of AI. They don't have to be technical. You don't have to understand how the large language models are built or anything like that. And Amazon, LinkedIn, Google, and then deeplearning.ai have incredible hours of free tools that are available to us. And I think we should all tap into them. They're really great. There's a bunch of AI training for executives that I think this group, can take advantage of. And I think if we have the literacy around AI and we know how to prompt and do those things, we're going to be much better off. All right. So the first one was, leverage your people. The second is your knowledge is your IP. And when I think about the switch that's happening right now, the big idea is that content creation is shifted to knowledge management. And the reason why is that content creation has basically become free and easy. But managing the knowledge in a business and understanding data and understanding how databases work is really the thing that's going to power all the stuff on the right. Chat, blogs, writing, emails, all of that happens. And the large language model understands how to do that if the knowledge is in good shape. And so I think that's a big idea that I want to carry through this, is that knowledge trumps content. And then the last one is AI is more than just chat. And so, one of the things that I think people have lost over this last year because they've gotten so excited about ChatGPT is that large language models can be used for all sorts of things, not just writing emails or writing poems or writing stories or writing blog posts. One of the things that I'll show you later is an example of a way that we used a large language model to score, classify, and then summarize resumes that were scored against job descriptions. And the user interface that the recruiters see when they wake up in the morning is a web application. It's a dashboard. Behind the scenes are all the stuff that's happening with Gen AI, but they're not conversing with it at all. It's just kind of happening. And I think you're going to see both kinds of tools. You'll see chat all over the place in the next 2 or 3 years, and you're going to see invisible large language models that are doing things that are really amazing. And conceptually, when you think about AI and what's different now than 2 years ago, is that we can do things with unstructured data that we couldn't do before. So if you think about what happens when you transcribe a call like this, and then you sick large language models on that transcription and try to summarize, or then summarize and draft a response or any of that, those language models understand the meaning of that content in a way that we just never have before. And I think that's the powerful thing, because you can have YouTube channels and podcasts and, you know, all sorts of PDF files and things that are completely unstructured. You can take those, understand them, and then put them in a structured environment like Salesforce would be a good example of a database. And that's where the power really is. And so this chart kind of explains that. So we have structured data, workflows in a business. And a good example of this would be HubSpot. I have sequenced emails, right? I have all this structured data sitting in there in fields, and I want to send out emails. So I do that. But where in the business, where in everybody's business, is there a ton of unstructured data and a ton of people doing manual work? That's the question. So you're a lawyer. Where's the unstructured data? Contracts, lease agreements. Where's the manual work? People reading those things and then manually summarizing them. You have a sales team. A sales team is going out on sales calls, or they're going into Zoom meetings. They're having conversations. Those conversations are getting recorded. What do they do next? They manually enter forms so that they can get that stuff into Salesforce. And do they do it? No, because salespeople hate doing it. So you have all these manual things that are happening with unstructured data. Now's the chance to kind of get it in there. And I think once you do, and you have people around it, and I think that's the important thing, is like the people don't go away. They just become in the loop. A concept that you hear a lot in AI is humans in the loop. Humans at the beginning, setting the intention for what the large language models want to do, and then at the end, checking it before it goes out the door. For us, a great example is our senior engineers. We use Copilot. And our engineers allow Copilot to write code for them. They're probably 40% more efficient at writing code. But they never let that code go out the door without reviewing it, ever. And they never did either when a junior intern would write code for them. You know, that's irresponsible. They would always read it first. Same here. You just need less people to do it. And so what happens to those people? Well, they can go into the genius zone in other things in your business. And there's power there, because you can take all those people that were spending a bunch of time doing manual things, and all of a sudden you can unleash them on your business. And so think about that. Think about the other parts of your business where you can unleash people and have real enterprise value. So here's some examples of how that can happen. You think about customer support queries that come in, and having a large language model understand that unstructured data. Legal contracts, resumes and application screening. Social media outreach for generative AI. Translation, real-time language translation with these models is unbelievable. Like, I think right now is the best time for translation, whether it's translation of content on the website or real time. I was just in South Korea when I saw Kate in Manila on the way home. I stopped in South Korea, and I don't speak Korean, but I was using ChatGPT to translate in real time using ChatGPT voice, and it was working, and it was amazing. And so I think that anybody that's doing any business around the world that wants to do translation, now's a great time to be doing that. And the last is market research and analysis. There's some companies that are using large language models to be able to chat, but then they're using typical machine learning to do analysis on data. But what's great about that is that even though the analysis is not using large language models, the chat is. And what we found is that business people, they don't want to write SQL queries. Right? They go to their data analyst team and they say, hey, will you find this information for me? But now they don't have to. Now they can find it for themselves. So I want to talk next about how to identify these opportunities. Like, where in your business does AI show up? So here are some use cases that we can go through. And I hope this just is like, plants a seed for, for the questions that we may have in the end. All right, so the first one is a code generation, marketing content. So, when you think about off-the-shelf AI, most of the time people think about ChatGPT, Jasper, but the big one that I think has even more power than these marketing tools that are generating copy is code generation. And if you talk to engineers, GitHub Copilot has totally transformed the way that people write code. It's amazing. It's off the shelf, it's supported by GitHub. And what happens is, for those of you that haven't played around with it, I mean, it literally writes code for you. Now, you have to go back in and maybe adjust some things, but on the fly in real time, you're asking it to do things as a developer, and it's kind of writing that code for you. And so, you'll see this a lot as we progress into the future, where there's going to be all sorts of things that we do where it kind of gets us 80% of the way there. And this is a really great example of that kind of off-the-shelf tool. The other thing that I'll kind of touch quickly on before we get into the really juicy use cases is training AI from scratch. Now, we don't really do a lot of this. It's very technical, but the idea here is that you can't use ChatGPT anymore. Okay, you're going to use like for a pharma company or something like that. It's not useful to have a foundational model that is being trained on the internet. Doesn't matter. What you need is that foundational model to be trained on hundreds of thousands of images of different kinds of cells to help find a solution to that problem. Those are models that need to be built from scratch. They're usually done with open source models like Llama 2 or other things in Hugging Face. They're expensive and they take a long time to do. But if you can figure them out and you can host them yourself, there's a lot of amazing discoveries that can happen. And I try to counter the media doom and gloom AI conversation with some of this pharma and health opportunity AI conversation. I think that this is going to be a very, very big one. It's not going to impact as many small businesses because it's expensive to do, but I think it's going to have a huge impact on our society. All right, so this is where Simply Augmented and what we do, comes into play. We do augmented AI workflows, okay? And these are kind of custom software solutions that allow you to leverage foundation models. And when I think about this, and when I go into businesses, the framework that I think about is I think about value, effort, and risk. And so when you think about all the ways that large language models can impact your business, where the manual stuff is happening, where the unstructured data lives, think about it from, well, what's the biggest value for me? What is technically, what is the most effort? And then where is the risk? And so I like to do matrix of, as I think about these problems that businesses have, whether they're in the sales funnel or they're operational or they're customer service, customer experience, I always think about them as from value, effort, and risk. So let's talk about some of these. Here's a use case. So this is a story about a company called Formations. And Formations is a tax expert. Okay, they're a SaaS company based in Kirkland, Washington, but they really are a tax expert for businesses that are super small, like sole proprietor businesses. And in the US, a ton of sole proprietors, because of the tax law, are like real estate agents.
2024 Zoom Video Communications Incorporated. All rights.
All right. So like a lot of those companies are real estate agents, architects, some accountants, they fall into this category. What the questions that they're asking mostly revolve around, should I be an LLC? Should I be an S Corp? And for those, that are in different countries, it's really just very, very small structured businesses that are a little bit one step above a sole proprietor. That's the questions they're asking. Okay. And the problems that Formations had, which is a good problem to have, is that they had tons of leads coming in the top of the funnel, but they were all unqualified. Most of them were unqualified. And so their small sales team was getting bombarded by unqualified leads. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to have us build a conversational AI that was outwardly facing, that lived on their website, so a chatbot, for sake of a better term. But it wanted to be a little bit more intelligent than the typical chatbots. Like it wanted to answer questions. Should I be an LLC? Should I be an S Corp? But it also wanted to ask questions. And it wanted to qualify people like a good SDR does. And an SDR, for those of you that don't know, is a sales development representative. So a lot of times the SDR will qualify the candidate. If the candidate's qualified, they'll pass them on to an account executive to close the deal. So that's what they really needed. And so that's what we did. So the criteria had to be natural language. It had to be an empathetic AI agent, SDR. It had to understand all of Formation's knowledge and provide their offerings. all 50 states in the United States needed to be accounted for. So there needed to be tax information depending on the state that you were in. It needed to qualify or disqualify you. And when it did qualify you, it would move you to a human. So humans were in the loop. So this was trying to understand, hey, is this person ready to talk to somebody? Yes, they'd give them to a human, you could schedule a meeting. And that's another thing that I think a lot of people have missed with ChatGPT is you can build UI into a chat experience, a large language model chat experience that has calendaring and has all sorts of UI that allow you to have call to actions and all of that stuff. We don't see that a lot because we've been seeing text a lot, but you can have that. So all those appropriate CTAs that move people to where you want them to go. So we tried to, at first, just take all of the knowledge in the business and push it directly to a large language model. GPT-4 is what we used at first. So we took they gave us all of their sales interviews, we transcribed them, all of their blog posts from back 2022, 2023, videos. They had tons of a huge YouTube video channel. Took all of that stuff, we put it in a vector database. But it didn't work. It was getting confused. The large language model was getting confused. And so, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this too with large language models hallucinating. And there's a risk for certain businesses, and this one in particular, you can't give bad tax information. That was a no-no. And so we had to figure out a way to increase the reliability of the system. And so what we did was we developed a system called KGA database. KGA stands for known good answers. So we took all of that same information and we put that into a structured database, and the large language model understood all this information and provided questions and answers for all of this. And we built a tool base that allowed the customer to be able to curate all the knowledge in the business. And what they were left with was kind of a golden database of everything in their business that they felt was accurate. And then what we did was we told the model to go there first, and then you could go to the IRS websites too and check the information. But if it ever was unsure of an answer, it always had to say, I don't know. Because one of the things that you see a lot with ChatGPT is it'll give you answers sometimes with high conviction. It's super confident, and it's the wrong answer. And we couldn't have that happen here. And so we didn't do that. And so what we got, and they call their chatbot max.formations.com, is a way to qualify these conversations and messages in a really, really thoughtful way. So I want to show you what this KGA manager kind of looks like, just so you get a sense of what it's like to curate your own data, because I really do think that whatever tool you use, this is going to be a job in companies, the knowledge manager. The content creator is going to go away. It's going to be the knowledge manager. So this is an example of what we created, but questions, answers, the source information from where that was from, super important, because you need to point back to where you were getting this information from. Was it from the IRS? Was it from a blog? And then being able to approve and understand the status of things and then tag a bunch of this information. So I strongly believe that humans need to be in the loop, especially on things where there's critical data. And that's going to be a job, is understanding the data, cleaning the data. And so this is, I spoke about this before, but this is just a quick example of what that looks like, where you have public sources, you have experts. In one case, we just interviewed a founder, because the founder had all the unstructured data in their brains. And this is typical, of a lot of founders, where they're frustrated because everybody in their business can't do a deal or a sale like they can. It's all living up in their heads. So we were like, all right, well, large language models understand structured data. Just let's do an interview. We'll talk to you for an hour. Transcribe. Now that becomes part of the database. And then, typically what you would do in the past is you'd have a content creator, and the content creator would even use Gen AI and create content. But that's changed now. Now all of that goes into a knowledge manager, and then the content just gets spit out. It's kind of free. Now, it still needs to get looked at. You still have some people around that, but a lot less people than before. And so this is just a diagram showing that, we have public knowledge, the internet, private data, code and databases. So this would be kind of private structured data. that live inside your businesses. And then private unstructured knowledge. That would be blogs, YouTube channel, all the writing that you do as business owners and so on. And by introducing this private curated knowledge, you prevent the large language models from getting confused, and you have much more confidence when you put a chatbot out into the world that is looking back at your data and giving answers. So Formations was an example of a outwardly facing chatbot. Same thing can happen inside. And so this is a story about Stride. So Stride is another professional services company. They are an accountant. Most of their customers are managed service providers. And the problem that they had, well, they had one problem that they came to us to, and they solved another problem along the way. So the problem they came to us with was small sales team. They had to reach out to prospects with information about the business, primarily podcasts and blogs that the CEO had created. CEO wanted them to grab little nuggets from all of that and share that with prospects, but they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it because it was time consuming. They had to listen to the podcast, they had to take notes, and they had to make little sheets and Word documents and all this. They didn't do it. And so we built them a tool that allowed them just to search, and they were in the middle of a conversation with one of their prospects, and they would just search whatever concept, that they were talking about, MSP best practices, and it would go back into their golden database, and it would give them back a summary. It would all the source information, what blogs they had talked about, the CEO had expressed those things in, and it gave them a direct message, an email, and a social media post on everything that they had mentioned, so that they could just cut and paste and share it. So they started using it. They loved it. And I reached back out to them after a month, and I was asking them about how it was going. And they ended up starting to use this for internal things too, to onboard employees. And they saw a huge reduction in the amount of Slack messages that were going out from new hires, asking more senior people questions about the business. And so when I think about that, I think, wow, when I started working at Meta, how many questions I had about benefits, about internal HR stuff, about just what was the business like, who did I need to talk to, like all these questions. And at the time, the wikis were not that great. And so I ended up having to burn people's hours asking them questions. And so I think that there's a huge, huge opportunity to use large language models inside a business to answer all sorts of questions that we would consider to be tribal knowledge, that's siloed all over the place. The other use case that we're doing for a company called Savills is a UK-based commercial real estate company, but they have a huge presence in North America now, and we're working with the North America team. And this is just an example that I put out there because I think a lot of lawyers and other people that are sitting on a lot of documents are finding large language models can be really useful. And so this is just an example of a pure, how do you take unstructured data, use AI, and put it into a structured form? And so anybody that has businesses where this is the problem, this is a great solution. So their unstructured data is commercial lease agreements, pages and pages and pages of PDF files. And their CRM, where they do all their automation, is Salesforce. And so their huge problem is kind of getting things into a structured database. And large language models are amazing for this. And so, insurance companies are sitting on a lot of this kind of data. Lawyers are sitting on a lot of this data. Some accountants, some commercial real estate. There's just a lot of use cases that fall into this category. And it's not so much a chat kind of solution, but it's a really powerful one. And the last one that I'll show you is a resume scoring. This is kind of a hot button topic because of some of the legal stuff that's happening in the United States right now around AI, but it's a really interesting use case. So this is a company called Doxa Talent, and they are, and the reason why I was in Manila recently is because of these guys. And they have, I think, about 200 American customers, and they have about 700 Filipino staff. And so the problem that they had was that they were getting about 60,000 resumes per year because, they're popular, and the recruiting team couldn't read them all. And even when they were reading them, they were going fast and they were missing things. And so we needed to build a system that read all the resumes and then scored them against the job descriptions that were provided and do it in a way that was auditable. So anytime someone said, why did he get a 92 and she got a 72? Or why did she get a 96, and he got an 84? We needed to be able to go inside and see what was going on. It needed to be accurate, and it needed to be very repeatable. And so the first thing that we did was we built job descriptions, and we tested this against jobs that had already been offered to people. So we kind of knew who was, or we didn't know, but we did a blind test. They knew who was selected, and they gave us 1,000 resumes, and we had to run them through the system. And what we did was we built skills and qualifications for these customers, job descriptions, and we weighted those skills and qualifications so that when we looked at the resumes, we could understand how did the resumes stack up with weight-based evidence around these skills and qualifications. And then once the scores came in, we were able to go into each one of these, S1, S2, Q1, Q2, and see the large language model graded. Did this person exceed, and then provided evidence? Did they exceed S1? Did they meet the qualifications or not meet the qualifications? And so now if you see somebody with a 90, you can go back in and you can see exactly the evidence of their resume and how did it stack up against the qualification. So I want to kind of close talking a little bit about how to go about adopting Gen AI into your business today, and some of those steps that you can just think about as we move forward. So one of the ways to think about this is to start really slow. Find some people in your companies that want to raise their hands and be part of an AI task force, and really build some learning and knowledge within the company. A few people that really want to step up and start incubating some of these ideas within the company. The other thing is to focus on the pain. And when we were at Meta, we would go around from org to org and help them with their problems. And we started calling what we were doing pain storming. Because we would go in and we would just say, I know, because at the time the name had changed to Meta, and everybody wanted a metaverse. And, a lot of it was optical, like it didn't really have a problem. They just wanted a metaverse. And so we would say, like, where's the pain? Show us the pain. Because usually when there's a ton of pain, people will want to solve that. And so I think that's a big focus for us. Identify the key points in your workflow where you can understand what the opportunities are. When you go back to that chart around value, effort, and risk, you might not know the effort. I mean, you could talk to a company like ours and we can tell you, well, what's the technical effort? But you know the value. And so you can go in and say, look, if I chose this one, this would be high value because I need to close deals. And so, yes, operationally, I may want to do this, but sales funnel is important to me right now. So quantify the value and the opportunity. And then I would say balance the risk by doing small POCs first. Don't just dive into something. Build small, quantified POCs. Make sure that they work and then deploy. And that's what we did for Doxa Talent. We went in and said, look, let's just build this one thing, test it. And actually, they did a side-by-side. They had 4 humans do the same thing that the computer did, and they just tested it against, and they measured the metrics, and it worked. And now they're deploying. And I think that's a good use case. And then I would also create lighthouse POCs. And what I mean by lighthouse POCs is, you could start with like a chat, whether it's external chat or internal chat, something that's solving a problem that you want to do right now. And that once that problem gets solved, other people in your organization will hear about it, becomes kind of a lighthouse project, and it'll kind of create momentum for you. And then, work with external experts like Simply Augmented. There's probably other service providers out there all around the world that can help you accelerate, because a lot of times if you try to do it internally, you can, it's just going to take longer. And then the last one is just hire great talent and train them. Going back to those original tools that I showed at the beginning, those free tools, make everybody literate. They don't need to be software developers, but make them literate so that they feel empowered and excited about using these tools, because you really do want everybody in their genius zone. So I'm going to kind of open it up. It's 5:42 my time. But I really appreciate your time. I'm going to open it up to questions. If you scan this with your phone, it'll take you to my company's website. And please reach out to me, fill it out. And I'm happy to talk with you about your business. You can kind of reach out to me at Boaz at simplyaugmented.ai. I'm always open to talking with you. The other thing that I'll kind of plug too is that the Shift AI podcast is a podcast that really elevates AI leaders in the Seattle area primarily, but also on the West Coast and a little bit on the East Coast. We're looking for more folks around the world right now. It's a combination of founders, so young entrepreneurs that are starting AI companies, incumbents. Luckily I live in this area with two big incumbents, Amazon and Microsoft. And so I get to speak with a lot of those guys about what they're doing. I get some inside baseball on that. And then a lot of government leaders as well, talking about AI regulation, which we had recently, the governor of Oklahoma and the governor of my state, Washington, just released their executive orders on AI. Our president released his executive order on AI earlier or later last year. So we're starting to see a lot of government momentum around this. And so we talk a lot about that on the podcast. So I would love for you guys to listen, and I appreciate your time. So let's open it up to questions.
Yeah, Boaz, thank you. Kate,
yes, Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Boaz, for that insightful presentation. Now we'll transition into the Q&A session. Dan will host the Q&A. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Paul, Boaz. I have so many questions, but I would like to, if anyone has a question, please, you can either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand here. I can see everyone now.
And I have a question. Boaz,
Yeah,
I have to say we're all so quiet because you're one of those people that really know what you're talking about, and you can talk about the technology behind it. I think we're all like stunned a little bit. I'm stunned myself. And question, when you work with Doxa is they have a virtual assistant, right? When you go into a company like that and create those the systems, is that pretty expensive? I mean, I could just imagine, but like, what does that look like? Do you require, what kind of size of business? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that for us, it's a little bit different than an Accenture or a McKinsey or somebody like that. I mean, we're not even swimming in those waters. Like a big consultancy like that, you might be in the $500,000 to $1 million range, to start a project. But for us, we're operating with businesses that are probably, 20 employees to about 250 employees. That's kind of the size that we're dealing with. And, it's probably the cost of a single inexpensive employee for the year is what it costs to get everything going, depending on the use case and what you're doing. And we try to break it down and manage services so that there's a monthly cost rather than big upfront costs. But that's how I kind of think about these POCs. They can be in the $40,000 range, even less sometimes if they're smaller, just to kind of start. But then when you manage the service, I would just budget, the cost of an individual in your business, but it's really an AI. And that, if it works, you're 3Xing at least on that single, outlay of money. That's kind of how I think about it.
So I could just imagine, what you do is like a lot of the government offices here in Asia, that's really super slow. And if you could speed up, we could solve a lot of problems. Thank you. Dan, back
exactly.
to you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's very interesting. I was going to ask the same question, Kate. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. And I know you asked about Shift AI podcast, which I've been listening to for a bit, and Paul added in there. But Boaz, I'm curious about problem solving. So from what it sounds like, I don't want to say you can solve every problem, but if somebody can think about, let's say they want this type of solution, they come to you, it almost sounds like you can probably make it happen. And that's kind of the AI of the future, is like whatever we think we can create, What are your thoughts there? Or is it like we have to be thinking out it? I don't want to say like inside of a box, but how like out of the box can we really get in current state?
Yeah. So I would say that there's going to be a lot of tools that the big providers bundle into their systems that we're going to benefit from. Like we already are with ChatGPT, right? Like those guys are charging us $20 for something that costs way more. Like when we deploy Azure OpenAI for a company and we just turn on Chat or GPT-4 and let it run, it's costly. But for $20 a month, we take advantage of this thing and we can just hit it as much as we want. Now they're losing money on it, but we benefit from that. Microsoft's going to do the same thing, right? So all of us that use Microsoft tools, or Google's going to do the same thing with Duet. So we're going to have that layer of everyday kind of stuff that we're going to use. Then there's going to be problems in our business that automation solves. That there's really not, like large language models aren't necessary. Still need software, but large language models aren't really necessary. And so those would be like, if you think about email automation, it's a great example of that, like sequenced email automation. I mean, you can run a sequenced email campaign through MailChimp and you don't really need large language models, but there's all these moments where you do need unstructured data to be dealt with, whether it's in the writing of those emails or the reading of certain documents. And I think that's where that's where we can solve problems. And so like Daniel, it's a good question, because when I go into businesses, I'm just looking for those moments, where large language models will shine. And I know that this last year, it's been on everyone's mind and everyone doesn't want to get left behind, and AI, but it's not magic. But when it's deployed on the right things, then it is incredible.
Well, thank you. So we have Sandra here asked, how are you implementing change management practices into your work to help leaders overcome resistance to these new ideas? Lots of initial resistance in many organizations.
Such a good question. Such a good question. I think I've seen it happen in two different ways. I mean, this seems like an obvious answer, but it really is true when I've seen it, is leaders will create an initiative in the company and they'll say, hey, we're bringing AI into the company and this is what we're doing and these are the tools and this is the stack. And you guys, it's going to be incredible because everyone's going to have superpowers. And a lot of times there is a lot of resistance. And so I think the task force approach, when you can get buy-in from folks inside the company and get them to think about, get them excited about what the potential is a much, much better strategy. And that's, at Savills, that was the example. Like they had a bunch of brokers in that company that actually were started playing around with these tools and getting really excited about it. And the leadership just kind of let it happen. Now, they had guardrails around how you could use ChatGPT because they didn't want to use their own data, but they let that kind of incubate a little bit. And then they kind of created some structure around it. And now they bought ChatGPT Enterprise and now they're going to town. So that was the approach. I've seen the same thing in government. So Seattle came out with their guidelines for their business, and they said employees can't use ChatGPT for this and this and this and this. It was like super punitive. New York came out with their guidelines, and New York said, no, we want you to use ChatGPT because our constituents are using ChatGPT, and we want you to understand how to use the tools. So they did that, and then they provided some guardrails. I'm a huge believer of that kind of experimentation inside companies, and I think you get a lot more buy-in when you do that.
It's like telling, don't use the calculator. So Nadia said, in many areas, it's the EQ, not IQ, that makes things happen. Personality is so vital in many business areas, making people feel comfortable. How do you address that?
Wow. It is, I mean, that is the one thing that I think about all the time because it's so great. It's such a great idea. And, I've got 3 kids. And I think about like knowing what I know about how powerful these models are, I just think, gosh, how are they going to show up to work? And I think EQ is going to be what makes us valuable. Because when you look at what these things can do, like it already can beat me at the LSAT. I will never beat the computer at the LSAT. And it already can beat me at chess. And I don't even feel bad about that anymore. It just beats me. So there's like so many IQ things that I just can't compete with. But I can compete on EQ, and I believe that I will be able to compete on EQ for a really, really long time. Now, I know some people think that the computers are going to take over the world, and we're going to have this whole, thing that happens, and we're not going to have any agency, but I don't think that. I really think that we are going to be super valuable, but our students that have high EQ and understand how to deal with relationships and how to negotiate contracts and do all of that, that's going to be the value. And unfortunately, a lot of the junior developers that just kind of have their heads down and just want to write code, I mean, that's going to be a really tough road to hoe.
Well, hopefully people in the future have EQ. So Deanna said, what if it's the leaders who need to be convinced?
Yeah. You know, I think we're in this place right now where that is real, you know, but I even think that government leaders, who are sometimes the ones that drag their feet the most, understand that, I mean, it's just inevitable. So you can wait and not do it, but I mean, you are going to get left behind. And that's not just because, you know, I own this company and I'm kind of talking about AI all the time. There's just so much momentum around these tools that I really believe that we don't have to kind of over-index for them. I think that EQ is more important, to be honest with you, but I think we're going to have to use the power tools. Like if somebody came to a job site with a screwdriver and I was putting drywall in, can't use the screwdriver. Got to use the screw gun. Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you. Next here is, thank you, Sandra, for your comment there. And then Miko, how do you see open source versus proprietary tools solutions play out in the companies adopting AI? Sorry, my messaging was kind of jumping around there. But how do you see open source versus proprietary tool solutions play out in companies adopting AI?
So for those of you that don't or haven't been following, the open source community is really vibrant right now and around the world. And a lot of it is getting powered by one company in the United States called Hugging Face, which has provided a lot of models, and also Meta, you know, for better or for worse. And it was kind of surprising, but a lot of their scientists said, we're going to come out with open source models and it's not going to be a closed source environment. And it's really been very beneficial for a lot of developers. And the reason why is because when you have an open source, a vibrant open source community, then you can open up the hood and see inside. So you cannot open up the hood and see inside of OpenAI models at all. Impossible. Or Anthropic, Claude, none of that. So it's really hard. Like if you're not getting the results that you want, it's hard to understand why. But with open source models, you can. And a lot of businesses that have really important data that they want to protect, they don't even go the OpenAI route. They will go and use a cloud service. Sometimes they'll do it on premises. You know, they'll host their own cloud and they'll use an open source model because they can build everything from scratch. And so I think the open source community is going to survive. I hope it does. Because I think that there's a lot of good reasons to keep that community strong. And I think businesses are going to want that community really strong. So I think it's going to stay pretty powerful.
Amazing. Paul, I know you had your hand up. Over to you.
Yeah, I've been listening intently, and just a question about databases. You mentioned databases quite a few times. For a small, medium business, do you have a suggestion on some tools that we could look into to start building these databases?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think that for those really small businesses, there are, you know, you can use databases that are inside of your Microsoft products and your Google products, you know, right out of the gate. And, you know, they're starting to kind of build decent databases. You know, as you go and start to get more advanced, there's more, you know, there's different kinds of solutions out there that you can look into, like Databricks and Snowflake and others. But honestly, at the small and medium size, it's more about clean data than it is anything else. It's not really about where it lives. It's more about how clean it is, because there's a lot of messy, siloed, and old data floating around businesses. And it's not a huge deal until you point an LLM at it and ask it questions. And so I think that's another skill that I think people are going to have to learn, is just how to understand how to manage data and clean data, and then the ethics around data, all of that. Like I really believe that this knowledge management and understanding is so much more important than content creation. And I think that's a skill that we'll all want to learn.
Dan, I
Thank
have a
you.
question, follow up on that one. Boaz, a lot of us parents here are nervous about our kids, going to school, right? And we all know that what they're learning is going to be irrelevant. And you mentioned about data management, right? Content creator is going to be disappeared, which I agreed. What kind of, help us guide as parents, what kind of, focus in a college learning we should, talk to our kids, like when it comes to analyzing data, tell us
Yeah.
kind of what kind of degree,
Yeah.
if that's something.
I know. I'm thinking about it too. I've got a daughter who's a senior in high school, and she's getting ready to think about where she goes to school. I mean, I think that critical thinking skills are going to be more important, moving forward. I think that, I'm not exactly sure how you learn this in college, but, being able to have emotional intelligence and be able to communicate, be a leader, be able to, do a lot of things that business leaders do every day, like have hard conversations, with people, understand how to deal with relationships. Like those are soft skills, but they need to be learned. And I think that's going to be, part of it. The other thing too is I think there is kind of for people that don't want to go deep into the technical side, for folks that just, kind of want to be more on the business side, let's say, I think you do need to understand kind of a general level about how all this stuff works. And I think that, I'll provide you some links to some of these courses, but there's like a bunch of like AI for executives, introduction to AI, just understanding the language that we're all kind of talking about and communicating in is really helpful. And then the other thing is, and this may not be learned in college per se, but I do think that learning about the way to talk to computers using prompting is going to be a valuable skill. Not as valuable as all the hucksters on TikTok are telling us they are like this last year, but it will be valuable for sure, because in the same way that, before when we were searching and we were kind of using like SQL terms to kind of search on things, way more valuable than that, because we're going to be chatting with our data. Like we're going to be chatting with all of this information. And it's going to be important for us to understand how to use natural language. I was just talking to a woman on a podcast today. It's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, but the company is called Seek.ai, SEEK.ai. And she is just an amazing individual. And she worked in the financial sector. And she basically made hedge fund managers millions and millions of dollars by writing SQL code against all sorts of data inside their businesses, doing analysis on that data and predicting things that were going to happen in the future. They would make trades, make lots of money. And she left the company that she was working with. She was working at Citadel because she was finding that a lot of the business guys would come over to her and say, hey, find me this data. And after a while, and like it was kind of simple for her, it was getting kind of boring to continue to kind of find that data for her. So she started writing tooling for them. It would take her weeks. She would write this tooling. And then they would come back and they didn't want to use the tools. They were just like, just find it for me. So she set up a company that is called Seek that makes it easier to use chat. Like the analysis of the data is just old school, but the chat part of it allows you to talk to your data. And so now all those business leaders that were trying to figure out like how to write SQL queries, now they can just chat with their data. All of us are going to be able to do that. But we have to get smart about how to do that. And I think it's going to be through natural language, not through code, but we still have to learn.
To me, it sounds so funny, chat with your data, but it makes sense. Our data might become our best friend, might be the only one we want to chat.
Seriously.
Yeah, but I have to, I was in an event the other day, and this is secretary of some kind of big agency here in Asia, and she made it very clear, when you call to our number, you're gonna talk to a real person, not an AI. And so I was kind of like, wow, I think you're missing a point here, because in 2018, I ran a boutique hotel here in the Philippines, and every time I will deploy a viral video, we have hundreds of inquiries in seconds, right? So I used
Oh, yeah.
chatbot monkey. There was mobile monkey at that point. Now they're customer AI. So it filters who's really one that our team could do the sale, right? Like I think
Totally.
people really need to understand that utilizing chatbot, it's not replacing people. It's simplifying and filtering that you're more efficient and it's easier to close the sale because we can't accommodate hundreds of inquiries in seconds. And I think for
Oh,
leaders
yeah.
make a statement like that, they don't really understand how AI works and how they can implement it to their department. So we have a lot of education to do, and that's the reason why you, as an expert, like a community like this can share. But like it's fascinating to me how automatically people assume like, oh, we need to have real people. Yeah, it's a tool to help people
Yeah.
do their job flawlessly.
Well, I really appreciate what you guys are doing and giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I think that having forums like this and educating and talking about this is just so valuable. So I'm here to help, and if I can be helpful in any way to your businesses, just let me know.
Well, thank you, Boaz. Kate, do we need to get a picture here?
Yes, we need to take a
Relief?
picture. Yes.
All right, open your
Open
camera so
your-
we can take a picture. I need to fix my hair a little bit. Let me.
Me too. Me too.
So we can get ready. This is a great session. Thank you. But I mean, every time we leave these sessions, I just can't stop thinking for the next 24 hours. Like my brain is going overload right now, just thinking about possibilities, what's happening. But man, look at everyone's jumping on. What a great looking team here. Kate, do you want to?
Yes.
So if you're not on camera, take the camera. Let us know when you're going to take the picture so we can smile.
Yes, I got a picture. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, let's support Boaz. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. I can't wait to be working with you for the nonprofit of Global AI Council as well. And everyone, if
Yeah, absolutely.
give us feedback, we love feedback. I'm sure Boaz wanting to hear some feedback. Let's support each other.
Absolutely.
Manta is clear. It's AI for good, free education for all. Thank you guys so much, and we appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
For your time. Thank you, Boaz. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your questions.
Thank
today.
you.
Yes. And leaders, if you want to stay on the call, let's have a chat. Thank you, guys. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Diana, that was awesome. Oh, Devin is here. Oh, she exited. Hey, guys, that was awesome. Miko, thank you. From Malta.
Welcome.
Oh my God, it's 2 a.m. your time.
No, it's free.
Well, now it's free, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I'll let the leaders do their talking about. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, and it's funny how things work out. Kate
Yeah.
and Daniel and I were hanging out with the Doxa folks, and it just one thing led to another, and it all worked out. So I appreciate you.
We'll have a call, Boaz. There's a lot of things we can do. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Boaz.
We'll talk to you later.
Boaz.
That was great. Thank you so
That was
much.
really great. Yes. Hey, guys, that was awesome, right?
Yeah, that was good.
Bye.
My brain is.
Yeah, it's a lot of that's so technical. And Miko, thank you. Miko is one of our advisory board all the way from Malta. So like, again, so honored for him to still like try to be awake for us. So we're honored.
Yeah.
you,
Couple
Miko.
couple of those persons didn't really do the trick though, so.
Quick question, should I stay? Because I haven't yet gotten really involved, but I do.
No worries. Yeah, you can stay. We're just wanting to chat. We have our next speaker in I think February 22nd, and we'll have a meeting for leadership. We're still waiting for the IRS, and that's kind of, I wanted to make sure it's run properly. So once we get a go signal, then we all have it as structure. But in the meantime, we will continue the education of 2 times a month, which I find it super, super valuable. I think pretty soon we're going to be so well equipped that we can talk to anyone about large language model, right? Like that, it sounds just so smart when you can talk about all those things. But I really appreciate Bo's perspective. It's very different than the previous prompting. He could go deep dive I want to get him in the next few months again to kind of learn a different angle, because I know he talks about the future of work, but I think he can be a valuable into other questions that we have, because it's so intense. Dan?
I know. Can you imagine bringing people back in 6 months from now and just seeing what's changed in that short period of time? But yeah, no, we had a great conversation. I could tell in 5 minutes of talking to him that it was going to be a good conversation. And the first question I asked him was about what do you tell students who are going to go into college? So I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, no, it's really been amazing. And I think the twice a month is not too much information. It's just enough. And some of it, I like it, some of it's overlapping. So it's like, okay, now I'm really starting to learn, because there's always, I'm sure going to be some sort of overlap. And now I'm starting to pick up pieces that continue.
Nadia. I don't think she's still here. Yeah, so
I'm here. I'm
okay.
here.
So how are you? Did you like it? That was awesome.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. I'm glad that I got in, and yeah, so educational always. Yeah, and the thing is, like, things change so fast, right? That's what you just said. How it will be in 6 months from now, because it's such a fast development. Most people don't even know what artificial intelligence mean. You tell them on the street and they think it's something that is out of a science fiction movie. But here we are implementing it in businesses. But you saw my question, it's like, I still feel in many, many businesses, yes, AI will be so beneficial and will get us so much more ahead. Yet also the human relations, the EQ, not to be underestimated. And that's why the AI has something to chew on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
Diana?
was interesting.
Go ahead. Dan, go ahead.
The other day, I went to just a small gathering of people talking about e-commerce and the future of e-commerce. And it was very interesting that the host of the show, the host of this small of gathering, he's from India. So he flew in from India. And I'm the only one out of this whole, I don't know, a few hours that asked anything about AI. And he came to me afterwards and he's like, it's so funny how you're the only person that talked about AI. He's like, in India, all we do is talk about AI. He's like, we're not talking about anything else but AI. So it's fascinating how around the world, I think, Nadi, you were saying, it's like most people on the street are thinking it's something, but there's also people around the world that are not talking about it at all. But it's like, man, they're going to miss out. It's moving.
Yeah, I think actually, what's interesting, Dan? So you are quoting people from India, which from many perspectives is not viewed as, a world leader. Yes, a world leader in a first world nation like Germany, to me, feels right now like a third world country. It comes to digitalization, AI, all these things. I actually have a feeling right now we're seeing a major shift in countries where we thought, oh, they are so behind. Maybe when it comes to how they are running the country, when it comes to economics in certain areas, when it comes to technology, I learned through Kate and you that the Philippines were the most digitalized, app country in the world. They knew texting when we in America didn't know what a text message was. So I think we are watching right now also major shifts in terms of the world order as we know it or knew it when it comes to technology and who's on board, who is not. And the EU, in my view, is right now becoming, a fourth world country on that front.
I would partially agree on that, and maybe partially disagree in a sense that I had the opportunity about a week ago to participate in a class where in Malta, in small southern European country, an island country, AI was being taught to like 10-year-olds, and the kids were already like semi up to speed with a lot of the tools. which to me was like, I mean, they knew a lot more about some of the tools and how to use them than most of the adults that I know, which was kind of a cool but kind of scary. I mean, they're so young and adopting technology so quickly. I don't know how you see it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's crazy though. You know, it's a fine line of like, I was about to ask the question, like AI can, you know, put in there and like what the IRS released a few months ago when they figure out a loophole that people in the US owes $43 billion based on wrong taxes in 2021. Like, oh, do I really want to know I owe money? So like it's simplified for the government, like, oh shoot, now I owe a lot of money because it was wrong. But because the AI fixed it, like finding like, oops, the sing and dance, like crazy. Can you imagine? You owe that much because it was wrong. Like,
On the flip side, how much are we overpaying in taxes that maybe
that's
AI
true.
find
Can
us?
we have that too?
Yeah.
Like how much we're over.
I don't think the IRS is going to release that. That's something that somebody has to create.
Yeah, maximize my tax refund AI or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, maximize. We gotta be a chatbot. Yeah, but no, that today was really valuable. And Paul, thank you for hosting the masterclass. And really awesome. I really like this discussion after each talk because we can have a debate. I think we should do it as a really part of the masterclass because we learn from different experience and how we see things in a different way.
I have a
My
question.
question though is always like, how much do you want to put out there, run it through AI that is, personally, I talk about taxes. Do you want your business out there? Do you want your numbers out there? But then again, if you're using QuickBooks, it's already out there. So, you know, it's this fine line, like what do you want out there and what not, that I still kind of hesitant
Definitely
about
in
it.
a third world country, they don't want AI analyze things because no one's
Yeah, and the bots, they are super helpful. Not the bots, but the GPTs are helpful, and even the what you gonna call it, the Google thingies that you can use. What's it called? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The you know what you can download from all the Google apps and programs that you can download that now support ChatGPT as well. So ChatGPT might be safe, but what about all of the others? What is the term for that again?
I don't know.
Large language model?
Yeah. What are you
The
talking?
when you go to Google and then the apps that you can use with ChatGPT, or that there are other GPTs as well.
Plugins?
Oh, the agents?
Is it no? I'm sorry. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like it's drawing a blank.
Okay. And what are you about to say? Well, Diana finding.
Yeah, I have a bit of a question. And now I'm ready to get really involved, and started talking with some people, and I was wondering whether there are some tools that we're already using, so we can start sharing. It would be, oh, I heard this, and here's what I've done, and it's just like case studies, if you will, right? So, like for example, Kate, I'd love to like interview you, and you have information on how you're using all the different tools and the different experts. It's like the application of it after we get the experts in, you know. So is there anything already in place? If not, I would love to kind of, brainstorm around it.
Yeah, I think there's bots that deploying people. I mean, we recorded it and transcribe it for us if that's what we're saying. So then, I mean, we could put it in one, database of filtering, what, especially the last few sessions, there's a lot of different tools that they talk about. And yeah, we can put it in like what tools we utilize. Actually, Dan and I will be presenting next month about corporate productivity in entrepreneurs here. So we put together a talk, but like for us, we really have to use AI video because it's gonna blow your mind to explain it, and it's hard for people to digest it when you just talk it face to face. When there's video, it's easier to understand. Yeah, so that's actually a good feedback. And so
So I mean, I'm happy to, like, after each class or, master class, I'd like to maybe even interview somebody. I'll do it live on, do multi-channel and just like, okay, this is the tool and how are you using it? Kind of somebody who has used it. Because, well, for one thing, I want to know different ways of using it, but that would bring in more eyeballs and, I can, send it to other people. Here's the application of it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anything that you can, I think that's a great idea. That's something that we can do it for the council as well. It's very helpful.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll talk about it. But hey, this is really awesome. And we have another speaker this month. Oh my God, I can't believe it's February already. An Cheng, she's in the VC world in Singapore. She's really amazing speaker, and she could dive into enterprise level and hopefully a little bit on small business as well. But I'm very excited as now we're getting really, the speakers are just getting better and better. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah,
And
I was
you know
just
someone too. And Miko, I would love to have some speaker from Malta. I know it's horrible time. I would love to have some different angle of things in that world. Paul?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the custom GPTs that we were discussing last week with Jeff, and I think it could possibly answer some of Anne's questions, because let's say someone joins us on Masterclass 6 and they say, oh, well, I'm not really sure what's happening with Masterclass 1 through 5. So just a thought, we could create a custom GPT for the Global AI Council that has all of the data and information from those sessions.
Yeah.
So it could use the transcriptions of the sessions, it could use the Q&As and things of that nature, and then it could, essentially manage that data from all of our sessions, and then we could use that as kind of a living, breathing GPT that's continuously updated. So just a thought on that. I'm not sure if you agree that it's a good idea or not, but it's
a very
something
good idea, Paul. I just need someone to create that custom, upload all the transcribe, because then we don't have to be redundant about questions, right? Like everything, and it could update it as we go. I think, Paul, if you can lead that initiative.
I think I can. I'll probably need to have some help from my lead kind of automations gal, who she's actually also in the Philippines, but she works full time with me. So I think what I'd probably want to do is connect her with whoever's managing the data that, on your team.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of have them work together. I can oversee to make sure she's doing it, the way that I think it should be done. And you and I can kind of agree on what the goal is and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. And then, Anne, you still can do the video, because some people might not, they're freaked out about the custom GPT, like, because it's a chatbot. And then in a different angle, then we can, promote it in way different medium. Yeah, I think that's
happy to. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's 10:21 our time, and thank you so much. So great hearing from you guys. I'm gonna set up a call very soon. I'm still like tweaking things for the IRS. It's very tedious from my end, but I think we're gonna have it very soon. But we are getting a lot of partnerships here in the Philippines from different organization like tourism and communication department. So I'm setting up meetings very soon. I'll update you guys. But it's becoming exciting, and the impact, it's gonna be really huge globally. Thank you guys.
When should we all come out to the Philippines?
I know, and dude, we're gonna have a big figure it out.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Thanks, Brandon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Miko. Have a great day, morning. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Miko.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Nadia.
Great night, everybody, or good morning.
Bye.